Ah, The Wizard of Oz. What a fantastic feel-good movie. It's got everything. Lovable characters, well-written music, and would you look at the colour in this movie? I wonder why they never made a second one. Oh, they did? Well, no way. I wonder how they decided to carry on this heartwarming story. Oh Jesus Christ, what is that? I thought this movie was made for kids. This film scared me as a child. I refuse to watch it as an adult now because of how much it traumatized me. Lol. For years I actually thought I dreamed this movie. It wasn't until my fiance mentioned it to me that I realised it was a real thing. Lol. This film was basically a bad acid trip. Was literally thinking of this film last night. I still remember how utterly terrified I was when I watched it as a child. Quite scary. It traumatized me for years. This film seems to have affected basically everyone who watched it as a child. But the movie actually flopped and hasn't been seen by many at all. I, however, was lucky enough to watch this as a child. Released in 1985 during what I call Disney's happy years, Return to Oz was an attempted sequel by Disney for the 1939 masterpiece, The Wizard of Oz. Ignoring the fact that the movie was loved by practically everyone, I'd like to share my own personal views on this bundle of joy with all of you today. If you haven't seen it, you lucky bastard. But also, here's the story. The film begins with Dorothy, played by Firuza Balk, being sent to an asylum to undergo electroshock therapy to cure her of her belief in the land of Oz. That's right, the solution for when your daughter talks about a magical kingdom is literal torture. I swear, this film makes Puppet Combo's Nun Massacre look like it belongs on a leapfrog.
Did I hear somebody scream earlier?
No.
Hello, Dorothy. How are you?
I wish I wasn't tied down.
Me too, Dorothy. Me too. Anyway, before Dorothy has her intelligence zapped into the single digits, a lightning strike very conveniently knocks out the power of the building. She's still tied down though, and all she has to do is listen to the screams of the other patients. Luckily, a young girl finds her and tells her they have to escape or they'll be made into crazy people too, and locked in the basement. What follows is a really tense scene of the two girls running from the villain through a forest during a storm. At this point, I genuinely can't tell if I'm watching a Disney movie or The Great Escape. When they jump in the river, Dorothy's friend disappears beneath the waves. So, I guess she's just kind of dead now? Okay. Dorothy escapes the asylum and is swept back to Oz with her pet chicken, Billina, who can now talk for some reason. So that's cool. The first place Dorothy wakes up in Oz isn't the Yellow Brick Road or the Emerald City. So where is it? Well, it's a desert which stretches as far as the eye can see and will turn you into sand if you lay even a finger on the ground. Dorothy makes it out of the desert by hopping from stone to stone until she makes it to a grassland. When she explores some more, she discovers that the once pristine Yellow Brick Road and the Emerald City is in ruins, and that many of her friends, including the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man, are turned to stone. Or as it was portrayed to young me when I first watched the movie, everyone you knew and loved from the first movie is dead. I mean, there's literally a group of headless women, so even if everyone was turned back to normal, I'm not really seeing a future for them if I'm honest. As she's trying not to develop countless mental scars from seeing all of her childhood companions as stone corpses, the sound of the squeaky wheels from the stretcher in the asylum can be heard not too far away behind the surrounding structures. Now, this next scene is the one that's lived rent-free in my mind for years, and is actually the reason I initially thought of making this video. If you know, you know. But if you don't, I'll just let you experience it for yourself, and imagine how you as a small child would feel about it.
What's happened to you?
Come here, chicken!
These things are called the Wheelers. Up to this point, the scariest people I'd seen in films were Sid from Toy Story and Randall from Monsters Inc. With the right lighting and soundtrack, you could get away with putting these monstrosities in an actual horror movie. I mean, they've got it all. Erratic movement, unnatural voices, threateningly long limbs, Whoever approved these in a movie which was aimed at 6 to 12-year-olds either doesn't understand children or loves traumatizing them. When they say to make a memorable movie, I don't think forcing people to remember the horrors they witnessed is what they usually mean. We do get a break from the horror though when Dorothy finds a key and escapes into a dimly lit room where she finds a defunct robot called TikTok. Sorry, this TikTok. She brings him to life by winding him up, and he tells her that the Scarecrow left him there to wait for Dorothy's return. TikTok then proceeds to go sicko mode on the wheelers, and the pair run away to the palace, where they come face to face with the elegant-looking Princess Mombi. She seems a little bit strange, but alas, finally Dorothy has found another human who can help her find out what's happened here. Oh no, never mind, she has a room full of human heads on display. Alright then. Well, that's really disturbing for a kids movie, but I'm sure that's the worst of it. You know, why do I even have hope anymore? So, Mombi has a head collection, and guess what? She wants Dorothy's head too. Mombi says Dorothy isn't old enough yet, so she imprisons her to wait until her head is ripe. In her cell, Dorothy finds another new friend lying on the floor. Jack the Pumpkin King, Jack Pumpkinhead. Together they plan on escaping after finding the head of a creature called the Gump, which can fly away with them when it's revived. This leads the pair to sneak around the castle looking for the revival potion, which lies in one of Mombi's cabinets. Dorothy finds the cabinet and opens it to find the head of the nurse from the asylum. Dorothy knocks over the potion and unleashes what feels like the actual bowels of hell on the poor adolescent audience.
Dorothy, girl.
Jesus Christ. This entire scene doesn't have a single non-horror element to it. The score, the angles, the close-up of running past the screaming heads, the unnatural puppet-like movements of Princess Mombi, the head nurse screaming Dorothy's name. Courage the Cowardly Dog ain't got shit on this movie. Once we as the audience have got our heart palpitations under control, Dorothy revives the Gump and flies away with Jack and TikTok, crash landing on the side of a mountain. At this point, it's important to mention that throughout the film, Dorothy has been watched by these living rocks which seem to serve an as-of-yet off-screen character called the Gnome King. The Gnome King's spies have been watching Dorothy everywhere she's been, and now the group come face to face with him on a cliffside. The Gnome King explains that he has the Scarecrow imprisoned inside the mountain, and that it was him who destroyed the Emerald City, because the emeralds it was built with were originally his, so he took back what belonged to him. The Gnome King then sets the gang an Indiana Jones-style challenge. The Scarecrow has been turned into an ornament in a room full of other ornaments. If they want to free him, they must guess correctly which ornament he is, but guess wrong, and they themselves will be turned into an ornament. Jack and Gump fail the challenge, and after every failure, the Gnome King seems to become more lifelike until he has his own body. Thankfully, Dorothy successfully completes the challenge and frees the Scarecrow. So that's great, right? Well, the Gnome King doesn't play fair, and turns into a massive Godzilla-esque monster surrounded by fire and smoke, and the rock faces which litter the inside of the mountain come to life and prevent the gang from running away. Honestly, at this point, I'm desensitized to any terrifying monsters this movie wants to throw at me. By sheer luck, Bellina lays an egg as she's about to be eaten, and it falls into the Gnome King's stomach, poisoning him because he's allergic, and causing him to disintegrate into a way which isn't at all like another horrifying movie moment. Dorothy steals the ruby slippers from the Gnome King, who had previously been using them to gain power, and clicks them together. Dorothy manages to return Oz to normal again, and the gang gets away safely. Upon going back to the palace, Dorothy reunites with the little girl from the asylum who turns out not to be dead. Woo, now I know she's alive, I can just forget that for the last hour and a bit I was convinced I watched a little girl drown in a river as she tried desperately to escape an asylum which planned on shocking her until she was a vegetable. Hooray! This girl turns out to be Ozma, the rightful ruler of Oz. Ozma sends Dorothy back to Kansas, where she's found by her family and welcomed home. We finally got the happy ending we were looking for. I'm sure they won't do the exact same thing and send her away to the asylum when she starts talking about Oz again. The first time I watched this movie, I was probably about 7 years old. I was in after-school club, which if you don't know is basically the school keeping kids busy for a few hours until their parents can pick them up. I remember being sat on the carpet playing with those magnet toys that lost all of their magnetism, when the teacher put a videotape into the little CRT television on the desk. They turned the lights off and left the room for most of the movie. Which was unfortunate, because they'd probably have turned it off if they could hear the crying and see the wide-eyed children huddled together looking like they've just seen a dead person. Oh wait! They had! Like I said, that was the first time I watched it, because my teachers decided to show us this almost every week for months. I mean, to be fair, they only had Hercules, The Incredibles, and this rip-off Bug's Life movie called Ant's Life, but I would have rather watched that over and over again instead.
Sisters. Huh? How you doing?
How you doing? I'm Rose.
Rose.
Dee Dee.
Dee Dee.
Fang.
Fang.
Actually, maybe not the Bug's Life ripoff. I didn't really like the part where the Ant Queen's babies were eaten in front of her as she screamed bloody murder.
Turn around! Oh.
I don't know why I decided that now would be the perfect time to talk about this film, but here it is anyway. If you've never seen it before, I hope you found it interesting, and I'm sorry I put you through this. If you have seen it before, then I honestly don't know why you chose to revisit this. That's all I've got to say. Like and subscribe and all that fun stuff, and take care now.